Jason Michelle on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Jason Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Chase McKay, Michelle Knesvik, the reporter Nick Keyser with you on this Thursday. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. I feel like the weather is exactly where I want it right now, and it's going to be like 90 soon.
I couldn't even tell you what the weather is this morning.
Yeah, it's been nice.
It was humid this morning.
By the way, did you just sign the football as we came on the air?
Heck yeah, I did.
That was awesome. We're signing a football for something. You can see it if you're watching on the stream. Now, Robbie said on the way out, he goes, hey, I just signed the football. And I said, do you have the biggest signature on there? And he said, no. And all of us pretty much in unison said, Jared will do that. So,
I put mine right next to Mr. Wilson.
Oh, nice. There you go. There you go. Very nice. Yeah, so my guess is either by the NFL logo or Goodell's signature or the whole back, Jared will do just this giant Jared Stillman signature. It just totally makes sense. But anyway, we're already off the rails. A lot to get into today. Obviously, Andrew Brunette introduced yesterday as the new head coach of the Nashville Predators. Got to speak with him briefly. Seems like a very nice guy. Excited to be here. Humbled, which I think is really cool. And then Barry Trotz putting his stamp on things. Both of them were nice enough to go on Stillman and Company, so we'll reference that as we go along. But we start with the Titans OTAs yesterday and some news coming out this morning that I think is really cool. Brett Kern, longtime punter of the Titans, will retire today. There's going to be a 1 o'clock press conference that he will make it official, but Jim Wyatt putting the story out this morning. Brett is somebody that I've gotten to know over the years that is just a cool dude. You know, always will go out of his way to talk to us, talk to the media, get to know them on a personal level. We did a Smashville Live together several years ago and just kind of remained friends and talk and stuff ever since then. So congrats to Brett and his family on a great career. He obviously got to experience a cool playoff run last year with the Eagles when he got released by the Titans, took most of the year off, and then came on at the end with the Eagles and came just short of a Super Bowl ring, but he will call it a career today. But you were at OTAs yesterday. What were maybe some things? Number one, let's start with who was there and who wasn't that stood out to you?
Yeah, so I think that you and I, towards the end of the show yesterday, I said the number one person I'm looking for is Christian Fulton. Teron Davenport had reported towards the end of our show that, you know, Christian Fulton was in Nashville. He had a grand opening of his store just a couple days ago, but he was not on the field. So that definitely kind of made my ears perk up. So a list of players who were not spotted on the field today: Kevin Byard, Amani Hooker, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Caleb Murphy, Christian Fulton, Harold Landry, Dylan Radins, Trevor Wesco, and Danico Autry. So Kevin Byard, we've already discussed that situation. I think we will see him at mandatory minicamp. Don't think that that's a big issue there. Monty Hooker, that's an interesting one. A lot of people in the secondary, a lot of people on defense, you know, but a lot of these players too, we know have dealt with some injury, like a Harold Landry. I'm pretty sure he is in the building. So that's what I've been told. But Danico Autry, don't worry too much about that. Some of these guys are older. Amani Hooker, he's dealt with some injuries. The Christian Fulton one is really the one that makes me kind of scratch my head, because he did do this work in the offseason to work with these specific trainers, you know, to help get back there, to get back out there, to help with the hamstring issues. Wasn't there last week, which I said I thought was a bigger issue for him personally, you know, as far as getting that next contract. And then he's there yesterday, but he's not on the field. So What does that say about that? Is he rehabbing something? I don't know. This is speculation. What is he working on in the building? But not seeing him on the field, I definitely think that's...
Does it bother you that he wasn't on the field, or is it just like, okay, he's there, so I'm not that concerned?
I mean, I definitely think it's something you kind of raise your eyebrows. There's obviously a reason he's not on the field.
Right. And you go back to Vrabel's comments from last year.
And you go back to, is he injured? Like, is he injured again? Like, why isn't he out there?
I will reference the man that introduced his new head coach yesterday, Barry Trotz, he used to always say, is he hurt or is he injured? They're two different things. Mm-hmm. So that is the question right now. But, yeah, I think that's one to watch. Again, I'm not going to put a ton on it at this point. It is OTAs. You know, I was a little excited last week that, you know, not excited, but, like, got worked up about Byard not being there. I mean, get me to mini camp, and then, you know, if some of this is still going on, then obviously that's, you know, that's something that we can discuss further. Will Levis. Now, I know that I was knee-deep in Pred stuff yesterday, so yes. You were our Titans expert and reporter yesterday. So what happened with Will Levis? I know there was kind of a moment of frustration for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, looking and even just to go back before that moment, I got there for the second half of the practice, but I think in watching the reps yesterday, it was clear that, you know, Ryan Tannehill, the other two, you know, it's clear Ryan Tannehill's the pro, right? So, but yeah, there was, you know, a moment of frustration towards the end of practice before they all came in and spoke to the media. Whether it was, I didn't fully see it. I kind of saw it, but it looked like somewhat of a missed snap or dropped snap or something along those lines, and there was frustration there with it. I mean, what has been one of the big narratives around him? He's a really intense guy, a really competitive guy. So, you know, having something like that, you never want to end on practice. You never want to end a practice on something crappy, right? Yeah. That's like always
because that's all we're going to talk about.
That's all you're gonna think of. You're gonna talk about. You're gonna remember towards the end of the practice. So it was a moment of frustration. I didn't exactly see it, but I know it was some sort of like a missed snap, and you could tell that he was pretty frustrated in the moment. You know, a rookie. A classic
Ricky would
mistake.
Never do that.
A rookie mistake.
Ricky would not, but a rookie would.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's anything really to concern or be worried about. I think it's you don't want him to be the starter this year. You want him to have all these mess-ups in camp and OTAs and everything like that. But I think one of the biggest takeaways I had was, you know, Ryan Tannehill is and we already knew this, but of course we do leave the door a little bit open to how much did Malik improve in the offseason? What does Will Levis look like coming in? It was very, very clear yesterday that, you know, Ryan Tannehill is their guy.
He is. This was Mike Vrabel yesterday on Will Levis and his frustrating moment.
You know, I think Will is competing. He's working hard. You know, trying to take care of those rookie guys. It's a lot for the receivers and the skill players. So, you know, that's part of the job of the quarterback is to make sure that everybody knows where to go, where to line up, what to do. So he's trying to do that when we work with the rookies in the afternoon. You know, and then come out here and practice and try to carry it over to the practice field.
He talked himself out of smashing his helmet when he fumbled the snap late. Is he good at kind of contextualizing, compartmentalizing?
Yeah, we'll just payroll deduct him if he breaks all the helmets and the speakers and stuff inside. So just frustrating. I'm sure that that's something that they, you know, we talked about yesterday, and it, you know, came up here again today. So we'll have to focus on that and make sure that, you know, when 5 different guys snap to the quarterback or potentially the quarterback, you know, everybody's going to snap it a little differently or based on the play. You know, center's moving in one direction. You know, so we'll just have to make sure that that's taken care of.
Yeah, and I think Vrabel makes a great point there. I mean, when you're rotating centers, and I mean, think about all the times Peyton Manning talked about Jeff Saturday, and that was his guy for so many years. And when Jeff Saturday was gone or he had a different center, it was like there was frustration because it changes. It changes the field. Tim Hasselbeck's talked about that before when he's been on. So I get that. I like the intensity. He'll learn. You know, Vrabel didn't seem overly concerned about it, and no. So. But obviously, when things like that happen, that's generally something we gravitate towards.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you never want to see a guy go, you know, break something. I mean, he didn't, right? But Vrabel obviously jokes tongue in cheek there. Well, if he breaks something, you know, we'll make sure just to, you know, take that out of the paycheck, make sure to get all that fixed. But I mean, honestly, in a weird way, you hope that guys have that level of intensity even at OTAs and even so early. But yeah, a frustrating moment, I think, all in all. And it was I don't want to say pretty big storyline, but, throughout the media, talking to people yesterday, it was kind of the clear overarching message of, yep, Ryan Tannehill really, really leading that pack. And I think it would be a big stretch for anybody to say that there was really any competition there, which is something we already knew before, but just to reiterate it for people out there who think there may be a competition.
So I just got the ESPN alert about Brett Kern announcing his retirement. This is where you can always tell that the writer doesn't write their headlines because it says Kern announces retirement, Kearn. And then right underneath, 3-time Pro Bowl punter Brett Kern, Kern, announces his retirement.
That's a whoopsies, ESPN. That's a whoopsies.
Oh, that's too good. Yeah, so that'll be 1 o'clock today. He'll announce that. Real quick, D-Hop did come up with Mike Vrabel.
Did you hear the response? And I chuckled while I was standing in the press conference because, when we talked about it.
Yeah, because he said, I'm focused on the guys that are going to be
here.
here.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, bye. Ding, ding, ding.
So we'll get into that a little later. I usually don't do this, but Jared talked about that yesterday and how Vrabel handled that. And I got to be honest with you. I agree with Jared, and I usually don't. But we'll discuss that a little bit later.
Okay, yeah, you'll have to fill me in because I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, and we have the audio, so we'll do that. But coming up next, Andrew Brunette has been introduced as the Predators head coach. Greg Wyshynski going to join us at the end of the hour. Looking forward to that, hearing his thoughts on Andrew Brunette and what Barry Trotz has done. What do we think about the move and his introductory press conference yesterday? We'll discuss that next here on Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Family Leisure is having a come out and play sale. Hundreds of pools in stock and on sale. DIY pools start at only $16.99. 24-foot pools are only $29.99 installed in 7 to 10 days.
More than 100 spas in stock and ready for immediate delivery starting at only $29.99.
And Family Leisure has the Diamond Point Play Gym at only $24.99 installed, ready for immediate delivery.
Family Leisure is calling you to come out and play at both huge locations, Franklin and Antioch.
Do you have a VA loan? In this housing market, homeowners with VA loans have access to a ton of instant cash. Hey, Willie Donick here. Do you need cash to pay off credit cards and other high-interest loans? How does a check for 80 or 90 grand sound right now? Loan Pronto is helping veterans every day get the money they need with a quick and easy zero-cost cash-out refi with zero closing costs. With a VA loan, it's really cool because you can access up to 100% of your home's value. That's 100%. Use that money to pay off credit cards, home equity lines, car loan. Consolidate all your payments into one check per month and close in 2 weeks. Most homeowners who do this end up cutting their overall monthly payments by $800. And Loan Pronto's all-digital process makes it fast and easy. They're doing loans with super low APRs, and they love working with veterans. Call now. See what your options are. Call Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
Houston Clinic Orthopedics wants to thank their patients for voting them the #1 orthopedic practice in the Nashville Scene Poll for 3 years in a row. Their physicians specialize in spine, joint replacement, knee, hip, upper extremity, and other orthopedic conditions. At Houston Clinic Orthopedics, they adhere to all CDC guidelines for the patient's and staff safety. To experience world-class orthopedic care and see a list of all physicians, visit their website at tn.houston.com and book your appointment online today.
Hey, Ray Jeter here with Harness. Are you an experienced superintendent, project manager, foreman, or estimator? Do you possess a unique perspective that sees problems as valuable opportunities? We are an excavations and site utilities contractor. We are actively seeking skilled superintendents, project managers, foremen, and estimators who embrace challenges with a positive mindset. If you embody this mindset, apply today at selectharness.com. Harness LLC, build people, move dirt.
Two of the biggest names in comedy are coming.
Motherfucker threw a banana peel at me. It was premeditated. You can tell.
Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan together.
We are weird. Because what we are really is we're some weird super organism.
This Friday, Bridgestone Arena. Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan.
It's like, you didn't eat that banana recently, motherfucker. You had that shit waiting on me.
Tickets are on sale now at livenation.com.
Every day we are live and local.
They played tough. They came back and they still lost.
And your source for Nashville sports.
Yes, you want to have a fire sale, but who's going to buy those players?
We are Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Taking you through your mid-morning.
Love it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. This is Chase and Michelle.
Where'd you find those crazy characters?
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Andrew, in the release today, Barry said you're as good an offensive teacher and power play coach as there is in the game today. Is that how you view your identity as a coach? You consider yourself an offensive coach? And if so, how did that start? How has that been cultivated?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm an offensive coach. I think my philosophy of how I see the game is I kind of want to dominate the puck. And I want to have it as much as I can have it. And I don't want to chase around too much. So it's not really offensive. It's just more when you have it, keep it. And when you don't have it, get it back as soon as possible. Where I don't want to defend. I want to check, and I want the puck back. So we have so many creative offensive players, and I think the game's going that way, that I want them to enjoy the game, to be a style of hockey that's enthusiastic, it's entertaining, and it's fun to play. And these guys are going to want to have fun I want them to have fun coming to the rink every day, because I think if you enjoy the game, you'll play better. And as a player, I know when I didn't have fun, I stunk. So I think the more you can enjoy it, and let's not confuse joy with giggling and tee-heeing, and joy's the process of coming to work and getting better and improving and being together. So I think a little bit joy sometimes gets misunderstood, but that's kind of how I see it.
Andrew Brunette yesterday being announced as the new Predators head coach. Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, 615-737-1025. Our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Your thoughts on Andrew Brunette being named the head coach, and now we got to hear from him. I was impressed by him. I mean, I could hear how humble he was, and he had that kind of that tremble in his voice early in the press conference, because you could tell it meant that much to him. The other thing that stood out to me, this is Barry Trotz's team now. Barry Trotz is very much in control, because he cracked me up with a lot of questions that were about the process or, some of the coaching staff, and he'd be like, I'll take that one. And I even told him afterwards, I'm like, you just going to take everything? And he started laughing. David Poyle's just sitting up there like, hey, how we doing? But
it's
no,
good, though.
It should be that way.
Yeah,
it should be that way. I'm tongue in cheek. It should totally be that way. But I was impressed by Brunette. I like the hire. He talked. So they did the press conference, and then Barry Trotz went over to the left and did a scrum, and then Brunette went over and did a scrum. Bunch of the players were there. That's what stood out to me. Forsberg was there. Duchesne was there. Yossi was there.
That's
I saw Yakov Trenin. I was trying not to stare over it. I look over and Yossi waves and all that stuff, and I'm trying to figure out who all is there. But
just really quick to that, Chase. I mean, I think that says something, and they also were there too. During the David Poile retirement / Barry Trotz being announced as GM. That's pretty unique that they had such a presence by their players, and then in introducing the new head coach, them also being there. I think that's really unique. On the flip side of the team, the Tennessee Titans in town, when Rand Carthon got announced, his family was there and everything, and that's great, but you didn't see, and I understand, off season, whatever it may be, the guys were here, but I definitely think it says something that the players are there for a moment like that, and it's almost as if they're backing it, and they're like, we're on board, we're all in, especially with these older guys too, who you got a new GM, you got a new coach, you had a lot of young guys make significant impacts to the team, and that you are in some sort of a transition period right now for them, guys like a Forsberg, like a Yossi, Yakov Trenin you mentioned, to be there. I think that shows, first off, good leadership, and that they're supporting this and really on board with this move.
Yeah, and I think they are. And so I agree with you 100%. The fact that they were there watching it, got to meet him for a few minutes afterwards. I talked to Philip Forsberg, and he said, I said, what are your impressions? He goes, well, I literally just got to meet him, but I like his style. He played in the league, played 1,000 games in the league, over 1,000 games in the league. Yeah. So, it's kind of like the Vrabel thing that Vrabel says I make too much of a deal of, but I think it is a big deal that they can speak that language. They've been through those battles together, especially
they'll downplay
in the NHL.
They'll downplay it, but players.
Well, no, in hockey they'll probably be like, oh yeah, it's a huge deal.
Yeah, which is funny because. Of course, if you're a coach or whatever, sometimes people don't want to talk about yourselves and be like, it actually helps me in this moment that I've played or whatever. And when Vrabel says it, I always think it's funny because he quite literally was a part of one of the most legendary runs in NFL history ever and played with the best player.
Right.
He's like, oh, that's not a big deal. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think it's cool. Now, the question is going to be, what does the rest of the staff look like? And so, and Nick, take notes on these questions that you're going to hear because intrepid reporting was done on this question on what the staff could look like.
With Dan Lambert being dismissed as well, it leaves an open spot on the staff. Is it safe to assume that Todd Richards and Dan Heinold will also be back? And what's going to be the process of assembling the full coaching staff?
I'll start on that. I asked. I'm a big believer in a new coach having their guy. So I want Andrew to have their guy. Obviously, Andrew, his power play is part of what he does. And so it felt that I had that component where Dan is very, very good. That was a tough one because he's very good at what he does. But at the same time, I have to give him his guy. He has a relationship with Todd and Dan Heinold from Colorado and Todd from Minnesota. So I wanted to start with that staff, and they're all under contract, and I think there's a connection. So he was very comfortable with starting that way.
So that was kind of a part of it.
I'll take that question.
That it looks like it's going to be Todd Richards and Dan Heinold, and I don't see Bim Vanderklok going anywhere either. The goalie coach. I mean, this team has had 2 goalie coaches, and it's
they're good with that.
Yeah, and
you don't
Barry
touch that
knows
department.
him. So I don't think they're going to touch that. But and so then they were passing the mic away, and I sometimes hate it when people do this, but I'm like, man, I gotta follow up. You get that answer, and he doesn't answer everything, and he knows why he's not answering everything, so you got to follow up. So I followed up off mic asking if Carl Taylor could be a factor.
Did Carl factor in?
Yeah, as I said in the opening, Carl was a factor. It was a little more difficult because the timing was when it started coming, and I realized that they're in the middle of their playoff run, and so we, as I said to Carl, I apologize. We actually had to do a little bit of a Zoom because they were in Coachella Valley, and then they were coming back, and there's some timing because I said, I owe it to you. I was waiting. But you're still going. I didn't want to get in your way, and then I just had to do it. And he's a very good coach. I'm excited about what he's done in Milwaukee. I didn't have as long a relationship. I mean, I got 31 years of knowing this man and what he does, and I have a 3 to 4 month relationship with Carl. But when you talk the game and all that. He's a very good hockey man, and no question, he was, like I said, he was in one of the three people that I would even consider over John at that point. So, and if I didn't have any of these candidates, like I said, I would be very comfortable starting with John because he did a tremendous job.
That was Barry Trotz when I asked about Carl Taylor. Now, he talked more about how Taylor was a candidate to be the head coach. What I was implying is, could he potentially be added to the staff? Now, I felt like that was a little bit of a sidestep, and the reason that I think it was a sidestep is because he had previously said, he wants to give Andrew a chance to bring in one of his guys. And so I think there's going to be another assistant. It could be Carl Taylor, but Andrew Brunette may already have somebody in mind that he wants to bring in to kind of help with that. But obviously, when you hire the head coach, you want to know what the coaching staff's going to look like too.
Yeah, and Brunette also is so familiar with Barry. First off, him being his coach for so long, and just knows the type of guy he is in the NHL. So asking about Carl Taylor, or at least I've thrown out the idea that even before we knew who the new head coach was going to be, I think it was fair to say that there was already, rumblings that maybe Dan Lambert wouldn't be on this staff anymore, and that maybe Carl Taylor could fill a role like that, which is now ironic. You have Hines leave. Carl Taylor is still out there. Obviously, if he's up for a head coaching job in the NHL, there are still a couple more head coaching jobs available. But, does Brunette know that Barry thinks Carl's a really good coach and he knows about him and he's like, okay, yeah, I trust him? Or like you said, does he have somebody in mind that he wants to join his staff, somebody that maybe he worked with in his time in Florida or somebody he worked with while he was up in New Jersey? But did you also notice that they sound so similar?
They do, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I was listening back this morning, and I was
Barry's
like,
a little older, so his voice is a little deeper.
They
but,
sound so incredibly similar when they're talking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's hard. An introductory press conference, you can take some things away from it, but a lot of it will come down to what you see on the ice. But I think, overall, you got the answers you wanted. We got the answers about the hiring process. Barry, I felt, was really open about that. Andrew was open about it. So I think overall, and then in addition to the players showing up, I think that's a really good sign, especially in the offseason.
Yeah, and I can tell Barry wants people he's comfortable with, and you're going to see more moves. I mean, I think the front office structure is going to look a little different than the way David Poile had it. It is very clear this is Barry Trotz's team now, even though he is still the incoming GM and David is the GM. It is, David was up there, but he got asked one question, and I think David's okay with that. I spoke to him briefly, and I said, "These press conferences have gotten easy for you, huh?" And he goes, "About time."
he can just see a tough question. Somebody asks a tough question, and then all he has to do is just look at Barrett's. There you go, bud.
He's
that's
like,
yours.
I'm ready to go to Florida. Like, I'm good, So, and obviously David is going to be celebrated a lot in the next month and with the draft, and I want to see because I thought about this yesterday, and I'm like, he'll probably do the post-draft press conference.
Mm-hmm. It'll probably be both of them.
And so I'm going to try my best to ask the last question to David Poile. Like, I really want that.
Well, you just outed yourself.
I know, but I can still do it.
Listen, I feel like Jared might be like, no, I'm going to do it.
Jared doesn't care.
Well, because you said you did, maybe he will.
No, Jared will take his victory laps. That's what Jared will do. But another thing that stood out to me was in the media scrum with Barry Trotz, I asked him a question about building this roster the way he wants to, and I'm going to tell you, the answer intrigued me. You'll hear that next. Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
History comes home. Nashville's own Joseph Newgarden makes a last lap pass to win the 107th Indianapolis 500.
Well, it was a unique shootout. We had one lap to go, and everything was going to have to be put on the line right there and then.
We are your racing station, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Bring that big bet energy this summer with Superbook Sports. Superbook is the most trusted name in sports betting, and right now you can use the promo code THEGAME to score up to $250 with their first bet bonus, win or lose. They'll match your first bet up to $250 when you use the promo code THEGAME. Simply visit Superbook.com for full terms and conditions on that, or you can just download the Superbook Tennessee app in the app stores. Very simple process. Download it, create your account, put that promo code in, THEGAME, and then get to betting. Obviously, there is a pretty big basketball game that will take place tonight. Denver, a 9-point favorite at home on the Superbook Sports app. I like Miami plus the 9. They've been pretty hot. Denver might win outright, but that's a lot of points in Game 1 of the finals. Just visit Superbook.com for terms and conditions, or you can download that Superbook app, like I said. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The Electronic Express Memorial Day sale is ending soon. Don't miss a Hisense 65-inch 4K TV for just $349 or a GE Profile laundry pair for $599 each. Electronic Express has huge savings in every department: computers, appliances, 4K TVs, smart home, furniture and mattresses, and more. Get an Acer gaming laptop for just $599 or a Sony Bluetooth speaker for only $39. Get up to 3 years free financing throughout the entire store. Electronic Express. We make it happen.
If you're hiring, it can feel like you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. You can hope the right person comes along, or you can just use ZipRecruiter. And now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. In fact, ZipRecruiter has helped a lot of business owners find their needle in a haystack, like Marco, president of operations at Telly Tires and Auto Centers. Because Telly Tires has grown a lot in the last few years, Marco needed to hire everyone from a receptionist to a store manager to a head mechanic.
ZipRecruiter helps me find all the right people, even the most difficult jobs to fill. ZipRecruiter helps me keep my business running.
Take it from Marco and millions of other businesses who've used ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter can help you find the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/RADIO. ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Wendy's $3 breakfast deal is a bacon or sausage egg croissant plus small seasoned potatoes for $3. It's the breakfast that don't miss. So if you did miss Wendy's breakfast, don't imagine. Fresh cracked eggs, sizzling sausage, crispy bacon, and block out those hot, buttery, flaky croissants. Croissants don't really make a sound, but if they did, for a breakfast that don't miss, Wendy's is that breakfast. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's $3 breakfast deal.
Limited time only. Participating U.S. Wendy's. Select a request $3 breakfast deal to obtain discount. Not valid for a la carte or combo orders.
Want to see our smiling faces? You can watch us on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live.
We are good to go.
Presented by Superbook Sports, voted #1 sportsbook in Vegas.
I got some good news.
Taking you through your mid-morning, this is Chase and Michelle on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Very along the lines of the roster that you were talking about, and 13 draft picks, all those things. How much are you prepared for if somebody comes to you and maybe they're interested in moving a player that could help this team right now? You have the cap space that you'd be.
I'm looking for those deals actually. Those would be more, and we've been offered some of those already, or I shouldn't say offered. They've been proposed already. Those are the type of deals I'm looking for. You know, if you want to, there's some top teams right now that they're going to have trouble re-signing guys, whatever. Or they won't have the cap because guys' contracts increase sometimes yearly, or they're trying to make a move. All that being said, there's been some proposals. I love those deals that I got cap space. I might give you a little sweetener. I get the player that I want with the right term. He's still got some term on him that could fit in our culture. That would be perfect scenarios for me. So, yeah, if you know anybody who wants to do that, and there's a few, but if you have inside info or influence, I should say, I'm all ears on that because those are the deals I really want. I don't think we'll be big players in the free agency. There's not a lot of. We'll have some, but I don't think we'll be the big player. Like I think it's the free agent list this year is a little bit lean. So I'll let everybody else fight over that a little bit, but I'll handpick some guys that will be good cultural pieces, I'm sure. But I'm looking for those deals where the guy might have term. I can have him for, and if he fits, I'll sign him for longer. If he doesn't, then it'll be a shorter term risk.
Barry Trotz yesterday on maybe some of his strategy for this offseason. And Barry, I do have some influences. I'll help you out. See what we can do. But Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. So David Poile would always kind of give you breadcrumbs, but he was never going to flat out say it. Like I've told this story before. The day they had signed Roman Josi to the long-term extension, I see David in the media room before a game. They're playing Calgary that night. And I joke with him. I'm like, you got any more contracts to announce, anything? And he's like, well, maybe. You never know. And then an hour later, they announced Austin Watson a contract extension. And so David walks by me during the second intermission. I'm like, you couldn't have just told me. And he
You're
just
like,
started
really?
laughing.
It was only an hour.
He just started laughing, But Barry, I mean, will come out with it with certain things. But I think that that's the right strategy because, honestly, everything is in his hands right now that he can use that draft currency, that draft capital to move up in the draft to build for the future, or he can use it, if there's a player that he really likes that's out there right now that's established and the team that has him can't keep him because they're up against the cap, he can do that. And so this whole process, and he even said during that little segment, he doesn't like using the word rebuild, that because it is more of a reset, and you reset every year. And he goes, the draft and the trades and everything that are done are going to dictate how long this is actually going to take. And and I agree, free agency. David Poile for so many years would find those Joel Wards and Marcel Gotch and players like that Barry loved. And so I feel like it's going to be more of that. But I am curious with the way the salary cap is right now. The Predators are in a prime position to add at least one, I think, really good player that maybe they wouldn't in normal years.
Well, and that's the intriguing part of this offseason is because not only are you coming in with a new general manager, a guy who has been in the league for so many years on the coaching side of things, moving over to the management side of things, has his guy as his head coach. It's clear that this is his team moving forward, and he's kind of has a lot of different options. Usually when you see a new GM take over, sometimes they have constraints just based off of the old GM's moves or some of the contracts that they have. And don't get me wrong, I mean, there are some contracts like that, but David Poile did Barry such a service by figuring out how to get off of all of these guys and getting the most out of them during the trade deadline. I mean, that could go down as, like, depending on obviously how it works out, but I mean, everything he did at the trade deadline, you think about where it put this team right now. Yeah. I mean, you think you still have, so like, let's put it in reverse. If you still have, Matthias Ekholm, you still have the Granlund contract, you still have Nina Ryder on your team or Jeannot, right? I mean, you're in a completely different, first off, cap situation and just draft capital. So the fact that he's coming in, he has so many different ways he can go. He's seen a pretty big sample size from some of your young guys in Milwaukee playing at the NHL level and now in a postseason right now in the AHL. I mean, it really is like the best case scenario that could have happened for Barry Trotz taking over, I personally believe.
Yeah. 100%.
Because he's able to put his touches on the team to build it the way he wants, but he has some really fundamental pieces right now. He has a lot of cash to work with, and he has a lot of capital when it comes to drafting guys. Or, as you mentioned, Chase, packaging something to go and get a bigger player out there. But I don't think I really could have drawn up a better situation. And plus, you have an elite goalie who should have been a Vezina finalist and an elite goalie prospect, which are also huge assets to have when going.
You're leading us right there.
when going into a situation like this, like I can't even get over the different options that Barry has to work with. I mean, heading into GM position, you're always like, well, everything you blame it all on the GM, and Rand Carthon's coming into the Titans situation thinking, he's asking Kevin Byard for a pay cut, and you got Tannehill's contract and Derek Henry's contract, and they're not in the best situation right now. But Barry really is walking into a situation that is open for a lot of different things that he can do.
Yeah, you mentioned those goalies and the potential of trading them. I think this was from Stillman and Company, but Barry Trotz not necessarily saying no.
But you don't envision moving one of those guys to create something – to pick one guy and then use the other guy to help shore up the rest of the team.
We can. I'm not saying we won't. I think that's an opportunity, but you need the right dance partner. If someone came to me and said, listen, I'll give you the third or fourth pick in this draft, and if I'm looking for this and this, be it one being one of those goalies, then we have to think about it for sure, because that's your opportunity to get that maybe game-changing centerman.
Boom. And that's something that he wants. He wants a game-changing centerman. And it would be tough. It would be tough to see, especially if it's Saros is the one, but the contract's favorable right now. The term on it is favorable. He's in his prime. Now, I think if he has his druthers, he would be more inclined to trade Askarov before he would trade Saros right now. But if you trade Saros, you're getting, a top 5 pick in the draft and then some. Like, you're getting much more than that. I mean, I want a top developed prospect or even a roster player. I mean, you get more picks. I mean, if you can get 5 or 6 assets for Tanner Jeannot, you should be able to get a haul for UC Saros.
100%. And it's the internal conflict of, we know what Saros is. He's in his prime right now. He's been performing at such an incredibly high level these last couple of years. But, the roster around him hasn't been as strong, and he's had to carry a lot of this team. And eventually, he's going to, and sooner rather than later, going to have to get a big payday. And then the reverse is, well, you have Askarov, who is an elite prospect. He's performed in Milwaukee, but there still is that slight question mark of what does he look like from the transition of the AHL to the NHL. So there is somewhat of a risk there. But so that's what you have to decipher. I mean, do you need somebody now like that, or do you think it would be worth it to get as much as you can for him, because you can get more for Saros than you can for Askarov right now, just based off of what we know and what are the actual facts. But a lot of it comes down to is, do you believe Askarov can be either as good or better than UC?
Yeah, and the fact that they have 7 picks in the top 83 this year, this is a strong draft. And I don't pretend to be an NHL draft expert, but in the stuff I've read and people I've asked about, Nick, I know you're doing a ton of research on these prospects. This is a strong draft, and so I think there has to be a balance of maybe use some of those picks to move around and get some roster players now, but the eye is on the future, because some of these guys that they're going to be able to get potentially could be on the club in the next 2 years or so.
And fans, I promise you, Connor Bedard is not the only person in this draft class.
He's just the only name you know.
Probably.
That's really what it is. He's the only name you know, so that's kind of where we're at. We'll ask Greg Wyshynski his thoughts on Andrew Brunette being named the head coach of the Nashville Predators. He'll join us next. 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
The NFL offseason is in full swing, but you'll never miss any of the big news. Thanks to Yahoo's Charles Robinson.
They know that there's a chance that they're going to have to deal this guy.
He's one of the best insiders there is.
All of a sudden, he becomes a functional player who we thought was just trash.
Join Charles Robinson every Thursday morning at 8 on Robbie and Rex Road, presented by the NFL Alumni Association on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Music City will be rocking June 23rd through the 25th with a different sound, the sound of NASCAR.
Start your engine!
The Ally 400 is back at Nashville Superspeedway, and this year, it's a night race. NASCAR in Nashville. It's guitars and fast cars under the lights. Visit NashvilleSuperspeedway.com to get your tickets for the triple header weekend, including the Ally 400, Tennessee Lottery 250, and the Rackley Roofing 200 today.
Interest rates may be high everywhere else, but now at Genesis Diamonds, you can get 0 interest on any purchase. 5 years, 0 interest financing with nothing down. Beautiful eternity bands, 1-carat diamond stud earrings, and more. Starting at only $50 a month. At Genesis, we are always looking for ways to do more for our amazing customers. So don't miss this. 5 years, 0 interest financing. Imagine that $6,000 designer ring is just $100 a month. We'll even finance the sales tax. Now through July 1st only. And only at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs. On approved credit, see store for details.
Buffalo Bills Center of the West in Cody, Wyoming welcomes you as you enter Yellowstone Park's East Entrance. 5 museums in one and the greatest firearms museum anywhere. Welcome to the West. Buffalo Bills Center of the West, Cody, Wyoming.
AM radio provides always-on news, sports, talk, traffic, and weather reports. And it's also a vital service that provides important emergency information when your community needs it most. Tell Congress you need AM radio to stay in your car. Because when cell phones and the internet are down, this free emergency service is critical. And when you don't have electricity, radio in the car is often your only lifeline. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Lowe's knows the value of quality paint for pros. That's why starting on June 5th, Pro Paint Days are coming to Lowe's. Shop special savings on the products you need for all your paint jobs. Plus, MVP's members can take advantage of an additional limited-time-only paint offer when you shop Valspar and HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams. Join the Pro MVP's Rewards Program today. Offers valid 6/5 to 6/16. Exclusions, restrictions, and more terms apply. See Lowe's.com/L/Pro Loyalty Terms. Subject to change.
94.9 The Fan is your home for Hit City.
Your Nashville Sounds continue their 6-game series tonight in Charlotte. Swing and a miss, strike 3. Sounds win. Pre-game at 5:50.
On your home of Nashville Sounds baseball. 94.9 The Fan and The Fan app.
You're listening to Chase and Michelle on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Chase McKay, Michelle Knezvik, hanging out with you on this Thursday, as we do every Thursday at 9:45. We say hello to Greg Wyshynski from ESPN, senior writer with them. Greg, it's been a busy few days here in Smashville. What's up?
Hey, Greg.
Hey, how's it going? First of all, breaking news. Kyle Dubas, the new president of hockey operations for the Pittsburgh Penguins, just announced moments ago. So he didn't lie when he left Toronto. He is not going to be a general manager in the NHL this season. He will be a team president.
Yeah, it'll be even better.
Nuance wins. But yeah, you guys in Nashville, don't waste any time in making some news, man. It was fun to see it all kind of happen so quickly. Not fun for John Hines, I'm sure, but fun for the rest of us to see some changes happening down there.
Yeah, and I'll get to that part of it in a second. But Andrew Brunette was introduced yesterday. I got to meet him for a second. Seems like a really humble guy, very similar to Barry Trotz. I mean, you can tell that Trotz, he's getting somebody that he's going to be comfortable with. Obviously, he's coached him. He's known him for a long time, 31 years, I believe is what he said. But we've asked you about him before, and we saw the year in Florida, and then we saw the postseason. I think it's safe to say that, Florida wanted more of an established coach, and that's why they find themselves in the Stanley Cup final. But what was your initial thought when you heard the news that Andrew Brunette would be the fourth head coach in Predators history?
First of all, it's my first thought was it's staggering to think there's only been 4
I know.
for a franchise that's been around that long. It's kind of amazing. My first thought, of course, is that, first of all, we have to mention that yet again in the National Hockey League, relationships, nepotism, what have you, it all comes back to who you know. And obviously Brunette played for Trotz, so that's one of your first thoughts on it. I interviewed Brunette when he took the job in Florida. That job was very unique. I mean, taking over for Joel Quenneville after he resigned, basically trying to keep the ship pointed forward in Florida at a time that was really chaotic and unpredictable. And he did a really good job of that. But I remember talking to him about, taking this gig and whether he wanted to be a coach, because in Minnesota he was an executive. Didn't really seem like he had the burning desire to be a head coach in this league. But I guess he found it. I think it's pretty easy to find it when you have a President's Trophy winning season with Florida, when you go to the playoffs, when you learn how much you don't know in a series against John Cooper. I'm sure he's learned even more with coaching with Lindy Ruff in Jersey last year. And the thing that I like most about this hire is Barry Trotz, one of the more defensive-oriented people I've ever met in my life when it comes to hockey philosophy, indicating that they want to play more offensive, more up-tempo. And Brunette got to see what that looks like firsthand in Jersey, one of the most exciting teams in the league. And if they can import some of that to this roster, then Preds fans are in for a good time.
You'll laugh at this. So after the press conference, they did the little side scrums to kind of break them up, and so they had Brunette on one side and they had Trotz on the other. And I was standing in Barry Trotz, and somebody brought that up of you've always kind of been a defensive-minded coach, and he laughed and he said, honestly, like, I love offense. I've coached offense. Just every team I go to needed defensive help, and so I've kind of always been viewed as this defensive-minded coach. I laughed at that because, I mean, I guess in some ways it's true because Alex Ovechkin had, an incredible year under Barry Trotz as his head coach.
Yeah, I mean, it strikes you a little bit like Daniel Day-Lewis saying, I can do comedy. They just ask me to do drama. You know what I mean? Like, he's just really good at defense, and I mean, Ovechkin's going to have those numbers with anybody behind the bench. But philosophically, like, this was one of the things that we were really curious about with Barry Trotz, right? Like, he gets hired to run an organization for the first time. What does that look like? Does it still look like a Barry Trotz team? I mean, Lou Lamoriello with the Islanders, no matter where he goes, that looks like a Lou Lamoriello team, building from the crease out, playing conservative hockey. It's not like he's ever gone to a place and they become a fire wagon team. And the same question existed for Trotz and what his philosophy was going to be, especially at a time when the National Hockey League is completely offensive. Like, we are in a goal-scoring era right now, and you can't, try to manage your team the other way. You can't swim against the current. So to hear that and to see who he hired, I think are both really positive signs for his philosophy on what a team needs to be right now to win, and what this roster may end up looking like.
Talking to Greg Wyshynski from ESPN. Now, the John Hynes part of this, Trotz talked about the process and that he wanted to take some time. He wanted to evaluate, but then he went into it a little bit more and basically said that he was going to find the right guy, and he had 3 candidates. I think we all know Spencer Carberry was one of them, but he did not mention him by name. He mentioned Andrew Brunette. He mentioned Carl Taylor, the Milwaukee Admirals head coach, and he said that if he didn't feel like he found the fit, then he was more than comfortable keeping John Hynes. That creates a little. That's a little awkward, if I'm just being honest. But I think Trotz is a very honest guy. What was kind of your thoughts on that process and maybe how John Hynes was ultimately treated when he was let go 2 days ago, which he even said he has told people that he was in limbo up until that point when he told he wasn't going to be the coach.
Yeah, I actually think he did him a favor, to be honest with you. Like, if in his mind, in the general manager's mind, you are the 4th choice, right? Like, just do the guy a favor and get rid of him, because you're going to get rid of him eventually, right? And you're just kind of, look what's going to happen for John Hynes. I mean, by all accounts, and I've heard the same thing here in New York, by all accounts, he's very much deep in the mix for this Rangers job. If you keep him around into next season, knowing that there was 3 other guys you wanted instead of him, then you're preventing him from getting work. And at the end of the day, he might go and coach an original 6 team because Barry Trotz fired him. And so I know there's a lot of interpersonal stuff, and Hynes is a really good guy, and we never want to see, people lose their jobs. But if that ultimately leads to him getting opportunities now that he wouldn't have gotten in season if this happened, then I think this is actually working out in his favor.
Greg Wyshynski from ESPN joins us. Greg, sticking on this John Hynes topic and kind of looking towards the future for him, I mean, we heard some reports come out of New York, so you feel confident saying that he is very much in the mix to potentially be the next head coach of the New York Rangers?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a relationship with Chris Drury, their GM. The timeline has been kind of extended. They were talking to Peter Laviolette. They've been talking to others. The Hynes availability, again, has pushed this thing even deeper. I mean, we're seeing some of these teams start to make their big decisions ahead of the Stanley Cup final because the NHL doesn't like when news breaks during the biggest spotlight series of the year. And so you'd imagine the Rangers would have already made a call on this already, especially with, some of the other coaching decisions that have been made. They haven't, and I think part of that is the availability of Hynes. I'm sure Drury was side-eyeing the situation. I mean, anytime one of the greatest coaches in NHL history takes over a team, you get the sense he's going to want his guy in there, right? He's going to want to make a change if he didn't hire the coach that's in place, and Barry obviously didn't. So I imagine Drury knew that this was going to be a possibility and was maybe just sort of waiting things out a little bit to see if it would happen, and it happened, and I'm sure he's very much in the mix.
It'll be interesting. It'll be Hynes versus Lavi, the former Preds coaches for New York.
Right.
And one could get Columbus. You never know.
Well, and that was my next question leading in perfectly. What do you think about, the Columbus job opening right now, and who's the front runner for there?
So I have my own choice for Columbus. It's a guy named Pascal Vincent. He was a associate coach there last season. He's been toiling in that organization for a bit. I think he's going to be a really good NHL coach, and I would love to see him get an opportunity to take over a team and grow there a little bit. But I was having a conversation with somebody earlier this morning about this Columbus job, and what does it mean? Like, how sexy is that job? Like, is a guy like Peter Laviolette or Mike Babcock or somebody, do they really want to coach in Columbus? And I think that's a really good gig. They've got some pieces in place in Gaudreau and Laine. Don't forget Zach Werenski, who was hurt the entire year, who's maybe one of the top 10 defensemen in the league. They've got some young players coming up, including a very high draft pick this year. And that's also a place where the bar is set pretty low. Like, you can go there and coach for 5 years and know that you're probably not going to get fired before that, just because of how much growth that team has to have. I mean, my God, Gerard Gallant just got gassed after 2 seasons in New York. That's the pressure on that guy versus the pressure in Columbus. So I think it's a pretty desirable job. It's a good place to live. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are some bigger name veteran candidates that'll move ahead of the queue than Vincent. But I think that he'd be my guy if I was going to be Jarmo Kekalainen for a second.
Real quick, Game 1 will be on Saturday. What do you think about this Cup final? Who you got?
Dude, it's fun. It's a real fun Cup final. 2 teams that play a really aggressive style and are hard-nosed. I'm taking Vegas in 6. I think their overall depth, especially on the blue line, they've got 4 lines rolling right now. They've got veterans that have been there before, and they've got home ice advantage. And I think all those things add up to them winning in 6. I'll also share this. I thought this was really interesting. So the Panthers are tied for the 4th longest layoff between the conference final and the Stanley Cup final. And 2 of the teams in front of them on that list were the Bruins team that lost to the Blues in 7 and the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim team that lost to the Devils in 7. So we might be looking at 7, but it doesn't look good for the Panthers based on the history of this thing.
That is an interesting stat. Definitely one to keep in mind. Greg, appreciate it as always. We'll see what other news comes our way before we talk to you next week.
Thanks, Greg.
Awesome. Thanks, folks.
Thanks. Greg Wyshynski, ESPN, joins us every Thursday at 9:45 to discuss everything going on in the NHL. Obviously, it was a busy week for the Predators. We will get into the Titans and D-Hop. Vrabel addresses DeAndre Hopkins, and I agree with Jared. I don't say that a lot. We'll do that next. Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Join 102.5 The Game and 94.9 The Fan on June 6th for a night of music benefiting Souls for Souls at the Night Before Charities Writers Round featuring Saving Abel. General admission is $20 with every ticket going to purchase a new pair of shoes for a child experiencing homelessness. It's happening at the all-new Ballad East next to the Gallatin Hotel in East Nashville. Lineup also includes Louis Bryce, Brian Davis, Austin Ellis, as well as Lee and Tiffany Turner. Doors open at 6 o'clock. Get your tickets now at thegamenashville.com/golf.
Time to save cash fast with the 102.5 The Game Deal of the Week. Get a $30 gift card to Central Barbecue for half off at thegamenashville.com/deals. A $30 gift card for just $15 at thegamenashville.com/deals. Smoke is our sauce at Central Barbecue. Visit their newest location in Hillsboro Village. Get them while they last at thegamenashville.com/deals.
All of us at 102.5 and 106.3 The Game want to recognize our active military, veterans, first responders, and educators with the playing of our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land
1025 and 1063 The Game. Now, your Game Center update.
I'm Nick Keyser. As the Nashville Predators get situated this offseason, they've landed on their next head coach in Andrew Brunette. He was asked about his style of coaching ahead of next season at his introductory press conference.
I think my philosophy of how I see the game is I kind of want to dominate the puck, and I want to have it as much as I can have it, and I don't want to chase around too much. So it's not really offensive. It's just more when you have it, keep it, and when you don't have it, get it back as soon as possible, where I don't want to defend.
And the NBA Finals kick off tonight between the Denver Nuggets and the Miami Heat. Denver is in search of its first NBA title, while Miami can be the first play-in team in history to win it all. And meanwhile, the Nashville Sounds take on the Charlotte Knights tonight after shutting them out 4-0 yesterday, with pregame starting at 5:55 on 94.9 The Fan. You're listening to 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit thegamenashville.com. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT-FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne. Broadcasting on Alexa.
I appreciate that.
And other smart speakers. 1025 and 1063.
1, 2, 3. I think it was a good game. You had a couple of big plays.
The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
All the big topics.
That's what people want to know about.
Mixed with some entertainment.
So funny.
It's not funny.
Give it a minute.
This is Chase and Michelle with Chase McCabe and Michelle Knezovic.
We got a great show for you, and even if we don't, who cares?
Chase and Michelle on 1025 and 1063 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Chase and Michelle, 1025, 1063 The Game. Chase McCabe, Michelle Knezovic, Nick Keyser, the reporter, hanging out with you on this Thursday. Hope you're having a fantastic Thursday, broadcasting live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. We got a lot to get into with the Titans, including what took place yesterday at OTAs. Of course, we thought somebody was going to ask about DeAndre Hopkins.
Shout out PK, he asked.
Shout out PK. And you know what?
TD followed up.
And TD followed up. But those two I would put in the list of people that would probably ask because, you know, they know how to do their job. They do a very good job. So let's start with that. Here was the question to Mike Vrabel on DeAndre Hopkins and if that's something they would be interested in.
I think our focus has always been about the players that we have here, and we'll keep you updated as, you know, we continue to add players to the roster.
A guy like that available, is that kind of what you were touching on when you had mentioned, you know, how there's another phase of free agency, how it's not finished?
Well, players come available at different times of the year, all the way up until the trade deadline, and then, you know, some of those veteran players that may be out there that signed throughout the offseason and training camp and even into the season. So player acquisition is always going to be something that you can try to add to your roster at different times.
Okay. So that's how he answered it, and I think you and I can both agree that that's about on brand with Vrabel and how we thought that might go, right?
Oh,
okay.
for
and
sure.
you were sitting right there when he did that. What was the body language like?
Oh gosh, I don't go fully in depth of the full. I didn't. How about this? I didn't notice any significant body change from him answering whatever the question was before the DeAndre Hopkins question, to the answer, and then to after.
What would be the scale of 1 to 5 on the Vrabel scowl scale of what it was?
10 being the worst?
Yeah, or 10 being the worst, yeah.
I mean, 3?
A 3? Okay, that's pretty good.
I feel like he always kind of will just look at Paul and give him a little, But, like, they have that type of relationship because he's been covering him for so long. And then TD followed up, and I actually thought he gave kind of a pretty detailed answer in regards to,
sure.
You know, is this what you were talking about when you said there are other options after not drafting a receiver?
And I thought that was a really good follow-up by TD.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so that's interesting. So I get in the car, I'm leaving the Predators, and Jared had just had Barry Trotz and Andrew Brunette on, and so he shifts gears. He gets into this. So he played that clip we just played. Here was Jared's thoughts right after it.
Hey, I want to talk about the guys who are here. No. you're not just the coach anymore. Everybody talked about Vrabel wanting more power. Now, the Titans said Vrabel had nothing to do with John Robinson's firing. But then the fact that at the end of the season, Vrabel kept talking about how it was going to be more aligned and how everybody was going to be collaborating. And it was obvious that Vrabel felt left out of the A.J. Brown trade negotiation, and Vrabel wanted more say. And Vrabel's got more say. And Vrabel wanted that more say because he could have told Amy, no, go hire Rick Spielman to be the general manager, and I'll report to him. But you know Vrabel's not going to do that. So Vrabel gets more say. Well, now, this is your responsibility. You cannot have this both ways. And I feel like that's what Vrabel's trying to do. When Vrabel tells you, like, oh, yeah, I want to talk about the guys who are here. Dude, you are a player acquisitioner.
Okay. So now I will say, I don't believe Vrabel had anything to do with Robinson getting fired. I have moved on from that.
Did he just say that?
Well, he kind of referenced he kind of referenced it, and
like,
not necessarily saying that, but I want to specify that.
Okay.
I 100% agree with Jared though, because whether they want to lay this out of what who does what and who reports to who and all that stuff. The way it's been laid out is they both report to Amy Adams Strunk, which in my mind, if you both report to the owner, then you're equal. That's how that works. And so Vrabel has more power. I 100% agree with Jared on that. And so I also agree that he can't necessarily get away, and the tease going into this segment was great because he said there's something that Vrabel said that he could have gotten away with last year. He can't get away with it this year. He answered it like a coach, and he can't necessarily answer it like a coach anymore. Now, I don't expect him to come out and say, hell yeah, we're going to go try and get DeAndre Hopkins. We'd love to have him here. But you can answer the question. You can say, look, he's a talented player. I knew him in Houston. Obviously, he's got an opportunity to go somewhere. We'll see how this plays out. But, and you don't even have to show your hand and say, yeah, we kicked the tires on him. But you can answer it in a different way. Saying that I'm going to focus on the guys that are here is a coach answer, and you're not just the coach anymore.
Yeah, but he's in a coach setting.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're right. He's coaching OTAs. It doesn't matter. When you wear more than one hat, you're always wearing more than one hat.
But I will say, to their point, and as much as we can speculate, and I'm giggling over here, I'm laughing at this because Vrabel's going to do whatever he wants. He can go up there and he can be like, he can look at all of us media people and be like, I got my hand in the 53. I know who I'm picking for this roster. And he can just say, I'm the coach. I'm only going to talk about the people on my roster, because they haven't actually come out and said that, Vrabel is going to have final say. They haven't addressed it. We can speculate.
I know, but we all know it's true.
But they can sit there and say, we didn't tell you that.
No, but they did tell us that they both report to Amy Adams Strunk.
Well, she's the owner. Technically speaking, everybody does.
But there is a hierarchy in a business.
Okay.
There's a hierarchy. Like, you report to somebody and I report to somebody, and then that somebody above me reports to somebody. That's how it works. If you're both going directly to the owner and there's nobody in between, that to me says collaboration, whatever word you want to use, you're equal.
I have an example. Vrabel, when he says things, they're very, I feel like he says them like face value. So for instance, when he came on our show a couple weeks ago and you asked him the question about, you said something along the lines, Vrabel, I heard you say that.
Vrabes, babe, what's up?
I heard you say that, you told Will Levis to put together some of his. And then I didn't say that. And then he's like, are you asking me? And then you asked, and he was like, yeah, I did say that. He knows what he has said. He knows he is not. And I'm playing devil's advocate here. He could easily say to that, well, I never said that. I said that I report to Amy Adams Strunk. That does not equal. We can assume and we can infer, and that's how I think it is. But at the same time, like Bill Belichick pulls the same thing, and everybody knows that he quite literally is the GM and the coach.
He never says anything. One person.
Never says anything. So as much as we can sit here and say, hey, you have to answer and you have to answer these questions now, is he going to? No. And as much as you can want him to, the only way you probably will get an answer like that will be in a post-draft press conference type setting because he's in coach mode.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying, but you've been at these press conferences. You've been covering this team. You've been around them more so lately than I have. Does it not feel though that when you see Vrabel and Carthon in a setting together, that it's different than it was last year with J-Rob and Vrabel, that Vrabel certainly comes across like he has more decision-making ability?
Well, I mean, he knows the team a lot better because he's been here for the last however many years he's been coaching. I also, to be frank and honest, I never got to be in a press conference with John Robinson in the 3 years that I've been covering this.
Okay. Well, I mean, and that's fair, but you've seen them before. You've heard them.
Yeah.
Okay. J-Rob, you always knew J-Rob was in charge.
For sure.
Now, when I'm in there, I feel like Vrabel's in charge.
Yeah, I mean, again, though.
And it doesn't have anything to do with knowing the team more, in my opinion. I feel like he's commanding the room more than Carthon is because he knows he can.
You can also look at both of their personalities and look at them both and say, okay, that's clearly his type of personality and that's clearly not his type of personality. I just think a lot of this becomes something of nothing, and everybody's like, let me look at the way Vrabel's acting and Carthon, and he's got final say and this and that. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to the DeAndre Hopkins question. And I understand, he might have more say, and he might be behind the scenes being like, Ran, go. We got to do everything we can. We're going to offer him this, this, and this. We need to get a number one wide receiver on our team. But, I mean, he is literally cut from the Belichick tree, who quite literally has both titles and does not say squat.
And that may be what he wants, ultimately.
Yeah.
But, again, I go back to this. What was one of the first things Ran Carthon said when he was introduced? That his first priority was Mike Vrabel.
For sure.
And yes, you want to get to know the head coach. You want to get to know what kind of players the head coach wants. But my takeaway has always been that when Ran Carthon was hired, it was like, hey, you report to the owner, but you and Mike are working hand in hand, and if Mike doesn't like something, then we got a problem.
But why does it matter? I mean, I think, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, and Kyle
Shanahan's in charge.
Okay, I mean, I know people who would say a little different.
I think Kyle Shanahan's in charge.
Okay, and then Pete Carroll in Seattle.
Pete Carroll's in charge.
Okay, so we have this conversation about these guys, but in those specific situations, nobody's ever come out and said it, but it never the first year was like, oh, he's in charge. It was, I believe, the development of them together. And it's like, okay, I want to give you the best players, which I feel like then the world takes it as, oh, he's just doing whatever he wants. By a GM saying, I want to get you the best players to coach, when in reality, that's how you're successful because your coach is the one who actually has to coach them.
They don't have to come out and say it because people know. And I say that in a sense of, I think we're seeing that here. Like, they don't have to necessarily come out and say it because they're not going to.
Well, it's going to look like a jerk. You're going to look like such a jerk. If Vrabel got up there and was like, yeah, I'm Rand's boss, he's not going to say that. Or if Rand steps in and he's like, yeah, I make the final decisions on Mike. Like, that's just not – like, I feel like we talk about this, who's in charge, but then that would be such a turn off to an organization if one of them got up there and was like, yeah, he reports to me. Like, how do you work with somebody like that?
If Belichick – I mean, we all know Belichick's in charge, but if Belichick ever said – I'm in charge. It's my final call.
He's different though. He's in his own category.
Andy Reid. I mean, there's certain people that like if they said that, I'm gonna go, yeah, no crap.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like that first press conference, like that was the main question: who's in charge? Who's in charge? Who's in charge? Did people really want Vrabel to get up there? And then if you're Ran as the new GM, you're like, wow. I mean. I thought, that's like, I get it. I know everybody knows what it is behind the scenes, but wow, you're really going to just be like, hey, I own you. I'm like, no, It's not going to happen like that.
Interesting.
I just think it gets made way too much of a big deal, personally.
Well, I just think that the breaking news here is I agree with Jared on something. So that take that for what you will.
I don't even know what we're arguing about anymore.
Take that for what you will. Interesting discussion. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. Coming up next, players that were and weren't at OTAs and whether it's a big deal or not. We'll discuss that next. Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
This fall,
Andy, 24-21, your final.
The Game.
All by himself for a one-hand flash.
Gets bigger.
The Doors on the board.
Your new home for Vanderbilt Athletics is 102.5 The Game and 94.9 The Fan. Football, men's basketball, baseball, and women's basketball all live here. Your home for Vanderbilt Athletics is 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and 94.9 The Fan.
Family Leisure is having a come out and play sale. Hundreds of pools in stock and on sale. DIY pools start at only $16.99. 24-foot pools are only $29.99 installed in 7 to 10 days.
More than 100 spas in stock and ready for immediate delivery starting at only $29.99.
And Family Leisure has the Diamond Point Play Gym at only $24.99 installed, ready for immediate delivery.
Family Leisure is calling you to come out and play at both huge locations, Franklin and Antioch.
What if you could be credit card debt-free in 10 days and save as much as $1,000 a month? Loan Pronto's all-new Express Equity Line of Credit program is just what you need. Hey, Willie Donick here. You don't have to do a full home refi. You can tap a small portion of the equity you have and enjoy a super low monthly payment. With Loan Pronto's Express Equity Credit Line, you can close in 7 to 10 days. And a $50,000 loan would only cost you around $400 a month. It's that money to pay off high-interest credit cards or do a home improvement. You can access up to 90% of your home's equity, and 9 out of 10 homeowners won't even need an appraisal. Even if you did a total refi recently or just bought your home, you can tap the equity with this fast, easy program. Stop the madness and say no to 24% interest fees. Call Loan Pronto today. 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
Tuning into the baseball game, monitoring the incoming storm, catching your favorite talk show. These are just a few of the reasons more than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio each month. And did you know AM radio is the backbone of the emergency alert system, keeping us safe in dangerous times? It's reliable, free, and public safety depends on it. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
High interest rates may be the norm everywhere else. But right now at Genesis Diamonds, we're always thinking about our customers, and we've decided to slash interest rates down to 0% for 5 years. That means you can get those diamond earrings, that designer engagement ring, or that luxury pre-owned Rolex and spread your payments over 5 whole years without paying a dime in interest. Birthdays, anniversaries, just because gifts starting as low as $35 a month. And that's with 0 down. Now through July 1st only. And only at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs. Approved credit. See store for details.
The NBA's best battle for the ultimate prize.
NBA champions.
Every big bucket.
Three-pointers right side is good.
Every big stop.
The steal rejected.
We are your home for the NBA Finals. Presented by Superbook Sports. Hear every game on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. Taking you through your mid-morning.
Love it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. This is Chase and Michelle.
Where'd you find those crazy characters?
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
I think Will is competing. He's working hard. Trying to take care of those rookie guys. It's a lot for the receivers and the skill players. So, that's part of the job of the quarterback is to make sure that everybody knows where to go, where to line up, what to do. So he's trying to do that when we work with the rookies in the afternoon. And then come out here and practice and try to carry it over to the practice field.
He talked himself out of smashing his helmet when he fumbled the snap late. Is he good at kind of contextualizing, compartmentalizing?
Yeah, we'll just payroll deduct him if he breaks all the helmets and the speakers and stuff inside. So just frustrating. I'm sure that's something that they, we talked about yesterday, and it, came up here again today. So we'll have to focus on that and make sure that when 5 different guys snap to the quarterback or potentially the quarterback, everybody's going to snap it a little differently or based on the play. Center's moving in one direction. So we'll just have to make sure that that's taken care of.
Mike Vrabel, Titans head coach, yesterday on Will Levis, having a little bit of a rookie moment. Welcome to the NFL. Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hey, real quick, join us June 6th. That's next Tuesday night for the night before our golf tournament, Charity Riders Round, featuring Saving Abel and benefiting Souls for Souls. General admission is $20, with every ticket going to purchase a new pair of shoes for a child experiencing homelessness in Middle Tennessee. It's happening at the brand new venue, the Ballad East, next to the Gallatin Hotel in East Nashville. Doors will open at 6. Get your tickets now at thegamenashville.com/golf. Really looking forward to that. Our golf tournament next Wednesday. We'll be broadcasting from there. You're going to do afternoons with Caroline, so that'll be fun right there from the golf course. And y'all are going to send me around, and I'll be like, Robbie Stanley lining up on the 12th tee box.
Chase will channel his inner Jim Nance and
Hello,
Scott
friends.
Van Pelt.
Van Pelt?
Or
Scott Van Pelt. It's the French version.
It's been a long
Van
day.
Pelt.
It's been a long week. I even told you I was
Van
like, Chase.
Dam.
I'm like, Chase, I'm on the struggle bus. I could not speak today. Blame my 5 hours of sleep. So, but yeah, we'll just forget that I said that. But we have a lot of text to get to on the text line regards to.
And I just muted. Damn it. We're struggle bus right now. Yes, read some of these texts on our previous discussion.
So this is a discussion on Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel, power struggle, or what maybe some people think it may be. Matt on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I believe the best teams have the best working relationships between a coach and a GM. They need to be on the same page about what the team needs. The coach is more on the personnel level with the players, personal level with the players, so he may need to be a little bit more involved in contract negotiations, but the GM should have more say when it comes to trades and acquisitions. That's Matt. And then we'll read Kevin's, which is along the similar lines. Vrabel's doing his best to not run over Carthon, but he's still pretty clear that he's the boss. Not sure how long Rand will be able to deal with being the puppet, and that's why they brought him here, because Vrabel is the boss, and they needed somebody who would be okay with that. Well,
I don't think he's a puppet.
No, yeah, I don't.
I just think he's the talent evaluator. That's what he's going to be. And I mean, look, he's the general manager. He has the title. He does have say. I'm not saying he doesn't have any say. I'm just saying if there's a coin flip, the coin's going to land on the side with Vrabel's face on it. That's what I think.
Picture his face just on a quarter.
The scowl will be at about an 8.
Rand's on one side.
The Vrabel scowl scale. Say that 3 times.
On a quarter. We're just off the rails today. I agree. I do agree with that. He does have final say. I don't have a problem, and we can read body language and read into what has been said. That's fine. I don't really think there needs to be a, hey, by the way, everyone over here, I choose the roster, not him. I don't think that needs to be said. I agree with you. I think a lot of it is, Rand does a lot of the management side of things, but I think, when you are looking at especially those first couple rounds in the draft, those are the players that everybody knows. I'm not talking about the back half of the draft where you really rely heavily on all of your scouts for that, because head coaches and GMs don't have a lot of time to, and that's where your scouts come in and trusting, their preparation and their scouting of specific players. But I do believe, say the first round of the draft, let's just use Peter Skoronski for an example. I think that, they were pretty solid on the fact that they both wanted him, but let's just say, for instance, maybe Vrabel wanted, who's the Ohio State offensive lineman who was in there too? Paris something, I can't
Paris
think.
Johnson Jr.
Paris Johnson Jr. Maybe it was between both of those, right? And, you look at your grades, whatever, and maybe Ram was like, I want Skoronski, and then Vrabel wanted the Ohio State guy, and then, you get there, and then you go with what your coach wants, because he's the one who is, dealing with him every single day, coaching him every single day. But I don't think it's very much like 100% Vrabel and none ran. I think it is a collaborative. And to our one texter's point, I think that's when you see organizations being the most successful. You know, we mentioned Kansas City. Andy Reid, I believe, has a heavy influence on that roster. We mentioned Seattle. Pete Carroll up there. We mentioned San Francisco with Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. I do believe those guys are the ones who have, you know, more say when it comes down to we both feel really passionate in the guy that we want, but okay, I will give this one to the coach because he's the one who has to coach him every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I go back to, you know, you were using some examples. I mean, the thing that I think they want to avoid is, like, if you go back to the 2006 draft, and, you know, Floyd has the late great Floyd Reese has talked about this from in different times, that, you know, Floyd, I think, wanted Cutler, Jeff Fisher wanted Leinart, and the owner wanted Vince Young. Who did the Titans draft? VUI is my guy. I mean, and that, you know, that's how it goes sometimes. And so I don't see Amy Adams Strunk pulling that. She's not her father in that sense, but you know, I think the collaboration does exist. But again, I stand by that. I think the Vrabel definitely has more power and probably ultimately will end up with the final say.
And I think it is an interesting situation, though, where it's like, I absolutely don't want this player, and maybe the other guy's in love with it. I think you just go with, like, okay, if you have, like, a problem with this person, like, yeah, we'll go with you on that one.
Sure.
Because that, you know, but there are, you know, Vrabel was a part of the hiring process with Rand Carthon. So, you know, when it comes to just the fundamentals of football, it's very clear that they really value a heavy running game. I mean, look who Rand Carthon's dad was, Maurice Carter, like Carthon.
Maurice Carthon. Yeah, yes, that is
Maurice
correct.
Carthon. It is just a day, ladies and gentlemen out there. But, you know, when it comes to their football philosophy, they very much are on the same page. So I think it really does more come into play when you see opportunities like they're in right now with, like, a DeAndre Hopkins situation. And, okay, you know, we're in an interesting cap. Can we get extra money to go and get him, to give him maybe a big signing bonus and then maybe a $1 million a year, but you give him, like, a signing bonus of, like, 12 or similar to the OBJ deal, because that'll help you manipulate that cap a bit. I think the who has final say kind of comes into more when we get into these situations, because then ownership has to be on board too when you go and make and you need a little extra cash for some of those free agents, aka maybe DeAndre Hopkins.
Exactly. Let's give something away. Caller number 3, 615-737-1025. You want a pair of tickets to see Tears for Fears at First Bank Amphitheater on July 11th. Caller number 3, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we'll dive back into the Predators. Andrew Brunette, introduced yesterday as the head coach of the Predators. Our thoughts on that, and also building the roster, how Barry Trotz intends to do that starting this offseason. That's next. Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Insightful discussion.
When we talk about the person that these players are.
3 goals scored in the first 5 minutes.
He wants to be the starter, day one.
Mixed with spirited debate.
Okay, but
let's Professor Derek. They are Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace. With Caroline Fenton, Willie Donick, and former NFL wide receiver Derek Mason.
We got the whole thing covered. We got it all covered.
Here.
Weekdays at 11 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
If you're hiring, it can feel like you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. You can hope the right person comes along, or you can just use ZipRecruiter. And now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. In fact, ZipRecruiter has helped a lot of business owners find their needle in a haystack, like Marco, president of operations at Telly Tires and Auto Centers. Because Telly Tires has grown a lot in the last few years, Marco needed to hire everyone from a receptionist to a store manager to a head mechanic.
ZipRecruiter helps me find all the right people, even the most difficult jobs to fill. ZipRecruiter helps me keep my business running.
Take it from Marco and millions of other businesses who've used ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter can help you find the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/RADIO. ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
CMA Fest is happening in downtown Nashville, June 8th through 11th, with dozens of performances by many of today's hottest black country artists, including K. Michelle, Chapel Hart, the TSU Aristocratic Bands, Breland, and many more. Proceeds benefit the CMA Foundation and music education programs. Visit CMAFest.com for details.
Hey, Ray Jeter here with Harness. Are you looking to take ownership in a position that will support your growth and development? We are an excavation and site utilities contractor. Several things set us apart from our competition, but we take the most pride in the professional development of our people. We have multiple openings for operators, pipe layers, and laborers. Our pay and benefits are second to none, including our 401k program. Apply today at selectharness.com. Harness LLC. Build people, move dirt.
Get in on the conversation at 615-737-1025. The game text line is driven by Wilson County Hyundai. Online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com.
Imagine you're looking at a balancing scale with everything you do for other people on one side and everything you do for yourself on the other side. If it isn't balanced, maybe it's time to spend a little more time on you. And therapy is a great place to start. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist online who can help you find that balance and stick to it. Visit BetterHelp.com/score to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/score.
I'm Howard Mackler, founder of Innovation Refunds. You've heard me talking about the payroll tax refund for months. If you own a business, even if you've asked your CPA about this, you owe it to yourself to take another look. We provide a licensed and insured tax attorney who evaluates your company at my expense to determine eligibility. Businesses of all types can qualify, so go to GetRefunds.com to potentially get a payroll tax refund of up to $26,000 per employee. Download the Innovation Refunds app or go to GetRefunds.com, GetRefunds.com.
Anyone want to tell me what happened? Did you miss any of today's show?
It's okay. It's fine. Don't worry.
Subscribe to the Jason Michelle podcast on Apple, Spotify, and other podcast platforms, or by going to thegamenashville.com.
All right, I'll give it a shot.
I got some good news. Taking you through your mid-morning, this is Jason Michelle on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Very along the lines of the roster that you were talking about and 13 draft picks, all those things. How much are you prepared for if somebody comes to you and maybe they're interested in moving a player that could help this team right now? You have the cap space that you'd be.
I'm looking for those deals actually. Those would be more, and we've been offered some of those already, or I shouldn't say offered. They've been proposed already. Those are the type of deals I'm looking for. You know, if you want to, there's some top teams right now that they're going to have trouble resigning guys, whatever. Or they won't have the cap because guys' contracts increase, sometimes yearly, or they're trying to make a move. All that being said, there's been some proposals. I love those deals that I got cap space. I might give you a little sweetener. I get the player that I want with the right term. He's still got some term on him that could fit in our culture. That would be perfect scenarios for me. So, yeah, if you know anybody who wants to do that, and there's a few, but if you have inside info or influence, I should say, I'm all ears on that because those are the deals I really want. I don't think we'll be big players in the free agency. There's not a lot of. We'll have some, but I don't think we'll be the big player. Like I think it's the free agent list this year is a little bit lean. So I'll let everybody else fight over that a little bit. But I'll handpick some guys that will be good cultural pieces, I'm sure. But I'm looking for those deals where the guy might have term. I can have him for, and if he fits, I'll sign him for longer. If he doesn't, then it'll be a shorter term risk.
Barry Trotz, incoming Predators general manager, on how he might go about acquiring talent for this roster. Jason Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Then by my count, they're at about $15.5 million in cap space, which is pretty darn good with the Predators going into this. And, they will have to handle a few things, like Cody Glass is an RFA, and he's obviously probably going to get a bump. Rasmus Asplund is an RFA. Nick, do you think he's back, or do you think they may try to move on from him?
Which one are you talking about?
Asplund.
I don't know about him, to be honest with you.
But like they need to take care of a Cody Glass. They need to take care of a couple of guys that are RFAs.
I'm curious on the defenseman because Carrier's an RFA and then Cal Foot's an RFA.
Exactly. And so if you don't tender those guys, then obviously they can walk. So I'd be curious to know what they do with it. But when I think of who they need to prioritize, obviously Cody Glass is number one. I would say number two is maybe Jake Livingstone in terms of maybe signing him for a couple more seasons because then he can play.
I think that's easy, though.
Yeah. It's nothing to really worry about because they're young players, and the Preds are definitely going to have the first priority to keep them. So those are the first few things that I would think of. Now, if they keep Osplund and he fits Barry's memo for what he wants, maybe. I don't know, maybe like a 1 or 2 deal. It would be really cheap for him to come back. But, I mean, there's not really anything definitive from my end. I don't really worry about keeping a guy like him, honestly.
So I think there are 2 guys that have a year left that they might want to address now. And that would be Yakov Trenin.
Okay. Was one new last year?
Yes.
Tyson Barrie?
No.
Oh.
No. I think I don't see a long-term deal for him. I like Tyson Barrie, but I don't see a long – no, I'm talking about Novechkin, Tommy Novak. Tommy Novak's got 1 year left on his deal, and he'll be an unrestricted free agent.
It makes less than $1 million.
Yeah, so so he and Trenin would be UFAs, not this offseason, but next offseason. And, I mean, right now, I feel like those are culture guys that Barry Trotz would want to keep, that Andrew Brunette would like. I think you try and get those guys locked up, and I don't think it's going to cost you a whole lot to do it. Yeah. That's what I'm looking at.
Well, and those are guys too that are just they're familiar with the team. You've seen success from them. I think Tommy Novak especially. I don't think that you can expect that production this upcoming year because it was a small sample size. He still was a guy who started the year in Milwaukee. But he's definitely somebody that you want to keep in the organization, so I love that. I know you really shot down my Tyson Barrie, but I was so high on him at a part of the power play this past year. I would bring him up to Max Hers every time he was on the show. I know he has 1 year left on his deal. I don't know. I mean,
so I'm gonna give you that a little bit because, and I'm not shooting it down. I like Tyson Barrie a lot. I agree with everything you're saying. I'm just thinking that you want to get younger.
For sure, yeah. I mean, how old is he? Mid-30s?
He'll be 32, yeah.
Yeah, I
but if you can get him
on a 1 or 2 year deal, I mean,
on a 1 or 2 year deal, he's making 4.5 now. I mean, if you got him to take 3.5, then I might consider it. But I mean, the thing is, they're not very deep at defense.
Nick is giving a face at that.
He says no. You say no.
No, I'm kind of agreeing with that. I mean, I don't know what you could get him at for a bang for your buck. I mean, yeah, he's going to be 32, but still.
If they announce 2 years, $7 million.
I mean, that's respectable. He has a long track record of being a reliable guy. I wouldn't think that's horrible.
Just a guy who's I don't want to say pillar piece because your pillar pieces are your Forsbergs, your Yossi, your Ryan McDonough, but another guy who's been in the league for a while. And I mean, Max was took on somewhat of a leadership role too. When
100%.
When some of the other guys got injured, and I actually thought the transition from Edmonton because he was in the Matthias Ekholm trade. I thought he really fit and meshed with the team quickly and pretty successfully early on in his time here.
Yeah, because he's very personable, and I think working with the younger guys in his time in Edmonton, because he worked with a guy that I thought did pretty well with Matthias. I believe it was Bouchard.
I think you're right.
So when you think of who he's worked with previously, it's kind of a no-brainer with his chemistry coming in here. I mean, his gear almost didn't make it down there, so he was just getting to know everyone down in Florida. But I think he's someone that's pretty interesting to keep an eye on. I would like them if I'm Barry Trotz, I would probably like to keep him or have a conversation about it. Now, the thing with me thinking of keeping guys on defense is how confident do you feel about the prospects you have? Because there's only a few guys, for me at least, that stand out that would maybe crack the NHL lineup here in the next year or two. So I don't feel as confident as I typically have in years past about the defense. Now, there's a couple of guys in Milwaukee that I think have done a pretty decent job. Do I think that they'll be top 4 defensemen? Probably not. So you got to think about what you want to swing on at the draft this year. I mean, I loved that quote yesterday from Barry talking about just his scouts taking swings at guys.
Yes, me too.
So if he takes swings, who is he talking about? And obviously we'll know here in the next few weeks what he's kind of eyeballing. But you're not going to see him take 7 forwards or anything crazy. I think we'll see a pretty balanced draft from the Preds. I'd be kind of shocked if they actually didn't take a goalie too, because they've got some guys that have been with the Predators that have aged. So I don't know if they feel confident with who they already have in the near future. But I think they really need to stockpile up on defense in the draft. And obviously he wants to hit on the big forwards as well. The centerman is the biggest question for me. That's the biggest storyline for me, is who's playing center in the next couple of years and who is elite in Barry Trotz's eyes.
Yeah, and along the lines of the question that I asked him is finding a team that's up against the cap that's going to have to move somebody. Tampa.
Toronto.
Yeah, Toronto. I was just looking at Toronto. They're definitely in that category. They had more cap space than I thought they did.
Yeah, they do.
They got like $9 million.
Oh.
But I mean, they're going to be up against it because they're going to have to re-sign some guys and stuff like that. So I mean, they're definitely in that category right now. Today, as we sit, according to CapFriendly.com, Tampa Bay has $450,000 in cap space.
Well, they don't need it. They won a lot of cups, so they're good. Hopefully, it'll be I feel like they're kind of maybe in that transition.
Would you take Stamkos for 1 year?
Yes.
He's got 1 year left. He's got 1 year left.
Yes.
Look, 1 year left, 8.5.
Tampa has to retain salary for 1 year, but that's fine. If I was going to trade for him, I'd have to have them retained just like how Kane got traded or Tays gets moved, or if he had gotten moved. Yeah, no, I'm not taking all that on. I'm sorry.
It's 8.5.
Well, yeah, but for 1 year, I don't think they're interested in paying him his entire salary like that.
I mean, okay, to that point, you'd have to get somebody to take Johansson.
Sure, yeah, you have to throw someone in. If you do that and it kind of evens it out a little bit more, and
you did get somebody to take Mikhail Granlund.
Right, exactly. So
that guy got fired.
That's okay. Thanks on your way out.
Welcome in Kyle Dubas. Yeah, he's here now. But also, as far as free agency goes, and him saying that he doesn't want to go after any big fish, well, I think some of the big fish are intriguing to me, Chase. I'm just going to give you a few names. Obviously, I just mentioned Tays. He's one. O'Reilly's another. Tarasenko's another one. Jonathan Tays is a UFA this offseason.
He's not going to play again.
No, but...
Wait, didn't he retire?
No, he hasn't. No. And John Klingberg is a UFA. Max Pacioretty's a UFA. Sean Monahan's a UFA. Jason Zucker, who I think might be a pretty good player. Jonathan Drouin, he's kind of like a Cody Glass, but he's older. You'd have to kind of let him get some more playing time to get better. The Preds probably won't do that. Bergeron's a UFA, actually, which is kind of funny. I don't think I'd sign him either.
No chance.
Let's see who else we've got.
Have you said Patrick Kane yet?
Patrick Kane, very
Preds fans, how would you feel about that?
I don't know about that. Milan Lucic is also a UFA that kind of fits that Barry Trotz memo, so I don't know what they would do in free agency, but we'll see.
I would have loved Milan Lucic like 3 years ago.
Yeah, just
so
a little bit past,
but not now.
A little bit past that.
I love Milan Lucic. I think he's such a he's one of those guys that I think this team needs that